page on Facebook and like it. Thank you.
Can you say? Speak.
Hello, testing.
Closer and louder.
Hello, testing.
Okay, that's good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. I'm Dr. NIKAM, and we are going to be talking to Chikeersha, who is an attorney who specializes in family law, and we are going to be talking about divorce. Everything you need to know about the big word divorce before you utter that or before you even think about that. I mean, he's an attorney, but he's going to walk us through all the ramifications of divorce. But before we go into that, let's just set the scenario here. You know, you go to college, you finish your college, you find the girl of your dream, you get married, excellent reception, all these things, honeymoon. Now you got a job which is very successful, and you have a wife who is very pretty. Then you have two children. Life goes through, and 5, 6, 10 years or something down the line, then all of a sudden, one day you get a call from somebody like you and saying, I am representing your spouse and we would like to know where to serve these papers. It's like the whole life comes crumbling down. But I mean, that's the reality. I mean, we just can't help it. So maybe you can walk us through what are the things that are involved when you're dealing with a couple who come to you. Basically, they say, well, we are incompatible, we need to get out of this. So I thought maybe we start off with a simple scenario where you got a young couple who have no children. It's not a big property accumulated because they're just starting their lives. How would this unfold? Maybe you can walk us through.
Sure. First of all,
And then we'll make it more and more complex.
of course. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Dr. NIKAM, for having me on your show. So, I do get a lot of clients that come in.
Yeah.
They don't have any kids and they don't have a lot of property.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, a lot of them are Desi clients
Yeah.
because they had just come from India.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the process is, first we need to file our petition.
Yeah.
And that's the document that you submit to the court that gets the whole case started.
I see. Yeah.
You're basically just telling the court what you want. You want to get a divorce. You want the court to divide your property.
Yeah.
And then the next step is notifying the other spouse about the divorce.
I see. Yeah.
And I know you described it like you get a call from the other.
It's like a lightning. You feel like your entire life is just going through a shock, electric shock.
It rarely happens that we actually contact the spouse ourselves.
Yeah.
What we do is we have what's called a process server. That's an individual whose job it is to give court documents to people.
Hand deliver it.
Hand deliver.
Well, that's even worse.
Yeah. Well, the requirement is that it needs to be hand delivered.
Yeah.
So, we asked a client, when is the best place and time to get your spouse, and they let us know, and we have it delivered. And then that is like a lightning bolt when they come.
That's right. Well, it shouldn't be like a lightning shock, really, if you look backwards, because this doesn't happen overnight. I mean, it's brewing over several months, years, and all this. And then first thing people start asking, where is your spouse in the parties? And where's your husband? Where's your wife? And that's already, visible in the...
Some cases you have the slow burn to divorce.
Yeah.
Some cases happen very quickly.
Is that right?
The spouse is blindsided.
Yeah.
Because it's a very individual choice.
I see. Yeah.
So it could be for no good reason, or it could be for very good reason.
Yeah.
And in this country, you don't really need a reason.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
In Texas, you don't need any reason.
No, you don't.
So, okay. let's go further with this case.
Yeah. So once the spouse is notified, they're served with citation.
Yeah.
Then they have about a little over 3 weeks to respond. So it's
Yeah.
a time where they can go and hire an attorney.
Yeah.
And the attorney will file a response.
Yeah.
And then what you go next into is a process called discovery.
Yeah.
That's where the parties exchange information. If there's no kids, it's just going to be financial records.
I see.
You're
Yeah.
trying to get a picture of each other's financial
Yeah.
records. Once you've established that, you can negotiate on how you want to split the parties' estate.
Yeah.
And then if you make a deal, then you're great. You just present it to the court, and the court will sign it. If you cannot make a deal, then you have to have a trial where you present all the evidence to the judge, and then the judge will decide for you how your estate is split up.
So is this like a trial by judge or by jury?
You can pick either.
Yeah.
In family law cases, we tend to do trial by judge.
Judge. I see. Yeah.
Because the family courts are separate and distinct from the rest of the civil courts.
Yeah.
So we see the same judges over and over.
I see. Yeah.
So we get a sense of what the judges do. If we have a situation, it happens every now and then where we feel like the judge really hates our client.
Yeah.
or there's something maybe
Yeah.
that emotionally would pull at the average person, then we might go for a jury. But juries are not common in family law.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Let's make things a little more complicated.
Sure.
So maybe you can summarize what you said. You know, they get a notice. Is there emotion, discovery,
Yeah.
all these different things?
So emotion basically is anytime you ask the court for something.
Mm-hmm.
So that there can be a multitude of reasons why that would happen.
Yeah.
But a discovery is standard throughout every case.
I see. Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes when you don't have a lot of property and the couple is kind of in agreement in how they want to do things,
Yeah.
you can avoid discovery to
I
keep
see.
the costs of the lawsuit down.
Yeah.
But if you guys aren't in agreement, then it's always necessary to do discovery.
I see. So what if they say, oh, well, we agree on everything. We just wanted to file the papers. We don't even want to come to the courthouse.
Okay. That is what we call an uncontested divorce.
Yeah.
And that means basically you're coming into the process already
Yeah.
sure of what kind of deal you want to make. Unfortunately, you have to at least go
Still
to the
appear
courthouse
before the
once.
judge.
Once.
Yeah. He needs to know that who is
Yeah.
getting divorced.
Yeah. It's actually a very quick hearing.
Yeah.
It's a 5-minute hearing.
Yeah.
And it's surprising how nervous people are.
I know.
But it's essentially a formality, and the court will sign off on the decree if both parties agree to it.
Okay, it's done deal. So they can
It's a
go to
done
the
deal.
evening party.
Yeah. You go that
As a free
morning,
bird.
Yeah, and the judge will sign it, and you are divorced.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about a scenario where you have a lot of property, you know, like a multi-million or
Sure.
maybe billionaire today, you
Sure,
know, million
sure.
is nothing. And your spouse doesn't work.
Mhm.
What happens under those circumstances?
Well, Texas has a marital property code,
Yeah.
and there are 2 classes of marital property in Texas. We
Yeah.
have what's called community property and separate property.
Yeah.
Now, before I explain what they are, the reason the difference matters
Yeah.
is that in a divorce, the court can only divide community property.
I
It
see.
cannot divide a person's separate property.
Yeah.
So let me first say what separate property
Yeah.
is. Separate property is anything you acquired or earned before you got married.
I see. Yeah.
Anything that you acquired as a gift while you were married.
Yeah.
Or anything you inherited while you were married. All that is your separate property.
I see. Oh.
It cannot be taken from you in a divorce case. Everything else is community property.
So see, that's why they have this the so-called prenuptial
Yeah.
agreements or arrangements
Yeah.
where they disclose all their
Right.
pre-marriage
Right.
property and all
Right.
this.
So, just as a point, those prenups can also be done after you're married.
Oh, I see.
People don't know that.
Is that right?
What's
Oh,
called
that's
a
good to
post-nup. Yeah.
for people to
And,
know.
and what those do in Texas essentially
Yeah.
is they say we will not have any community property.
Yeah.
Everything we have will be separate property. Because
Huh.
the big thing that's community property is your earnings.
Yes.
Okay, so once you get married, every dollar you make is community property. Essentially half of it belongs to your spouse.
Hold on. Hold on. You shouldn't have said half of it belongs to your spouse. I'm going to make it more complicated for you.
Okay.
Your spouse, your husband, let me say,
Yeah.
he's attending medical school.
Right.
So you earn and you pay for his medical school for 6 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
Then after 1 year after medical graduation and starts making, $300,000,
Yeah.
he files for a divorce.
Right.
Can she claim his future earnings because she supported him to get the medical degree, the talent needed
Right.
to make his livelihood.
Right. No, unfortunately,
That's
you
not fair.
cannot- well, there are ways the court will deal with that.
Yeah.
The division of your community estate
Yeah.
does not have to be 50-50.
Yeah.
Okay, the
I see.
court can decide that percentage.
Hmm.
So if the court feels like you sacrificed a lot,
Yeah.
so your spouse can get a medical degree,
Yeah.
and they divorce you right before the money kicks in
Yeah.
from the medical degree, then the court can say, okay, we're not going to do 50-50. Maybe we'll do 80-20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then if you yourself don't have the ability to support yourself,
Yeah.
the court can, if you've been married long enough, give you spousal maintenance.
I see. Yeah.
But it cannot, because it can only do community property. Once you're not married, you're not making community property anymore. It's your separate property. So the court doesn't have
No,
the
no, that's
authority.
not separate property. Because if she was equally qualified and if she was accepted to medical school and she sacrificed,
Mhm.
then you can't argue that,
Unfortunately, that's the way the law works. You can't get the future earnings.
Okay, tell about alimony since, I mean, it doesn't exist in Texas, but people need
Yeah.
to know.
Well, it's called spousal maintenance. In
I see,
Texas,
yeah.
Okay, and the standards to get it are very high.
Yeah,
You have to be, unless there was domestic violence involved, you have to be married at least 10 years.
I see, yeah.
Okay, and then once you pass that qualification, they'll only give it to you if you don't have the ability to earn enough money
Yeah,
to meet your minimum needs. Okay, or you don't have the ability to earn enough money to meet your minimum needs. And then once you pass that hurdle, they'll only give it to you for as long as you can't get to the point where you can meet your needs. So it's a very, very limited.
but it's kind of different though, because in California, I heard all these movie stars and all this. When they get divorced, they said, well, I want to maintain the same standard of life when I
Right.
was married to the spouse. So I need, $20 million a month or a year. Like when
Yeah.
Johnny Carson was getting his 8, 9 divorce and all this. And this is all the stuff we used to hear on the
Yeah.
TV.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that definition of your minimum reasonable needs
Yeah.
will vary depending on how you come into your divorce.
I see,
So
yeah.
if you're someone who has, for the majority of your marriage, lived in a very large home,
Yeah.
driven very nice cars, then your minimum reasonable needs might be different from, say, a person who comes
Oh, yeah.
from a middle class background.
I see. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to NIKAM Network Talk Show. I am Dr. Nick Nikam, and we are talking about everything you need to know before you utter the word divorce. Okay, let's continue here and make it a little more complicated. And they have 2 children, 5 and 6 years old, and they both want custody. What are the chances of a male getting a custody of in Texas? And tell us custody battle in general.
Okay. Well, so if there are children, and it's going to be called a suit affecting the parent-child relationship.
Yeah.
That is the name of a lawsuit.
I
We're
see.
Trying to decide what to do with the kids, and if it's along with the divorce, it'll be joined into the divorce. But you don't have to be married to have that lawsuit.
I
Because
see.
you can have people who aren't married who have children together, and they can still have.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
kids
yeah.
Where they're trying to set up child support and custody and everything. Okay.
Hmm.
So the main issues with kids obviously are who has what rights regarding how to raise the kids.
Yeah.
The main right fought over is obviously who gets to decide where the kids live.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second issue is for the person who the kids don't live with, what kind of visitation schedule
Yeah.
will they have? And the third is child support. How much child support
Yeah.
do you get?
Tell us about joint custody. Is there such a thing as
Well,
joint custody?
what they have in Texas are called conservatorships.
Yeah.
And there is a joint managing conservatorship and a sole managing conservatorship.
Yeah.
So joint managing conservatorship is essentially what the layperson thinks of as joint custody,
Yeah.
where the parents share a lot of the rights.
Yeah.
And sole managing is where one parent has exclusive decision-making
Yeah.
abilities. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And let's make it a little more complicated here. And what's going to happen to the children, their effect? Because now they have to live under 2 different roofs, and you have to listen to 2 different stories,
Yeah.
and they have to act or pretend, or they don't know what to do.
No, I mean, being a child of divorce is not easy.
Yeah.
Being around when that process is happening is not easy. But I can say this, the family law judges and most family law attorneys, they are looking to make sure that the kids are okay.
Yeah.
It's actually built into the law. It says the decisions for the kids will be based on the best interests of the
The
kids.
children. Yeah.
That's a very broad standard, which
Yeah.
allows judges a lot of leeway. And so, we try to put agreements into effect that will limit the children's exposure to the negative emotions from the divorce. We try to create possession orders that really allow them to have equal time with both parents. But it's there's no getting around the point that it's just a tough time for the kids.
What if the person doesn't want to? Okay, you can tell us about the child custody. I mean, the child support, and what if they doesn't make the child support on a timely basis?
Child support in Texas is actually very the law is very specific. It's based on a percentage of your net resources. So net resources are essentially all the money you make. Take out your taxes and maybe any health insurance that you're paying for your kids. There's a few other minor things that they might take out, but generally don't apply to most people. And then they'll take a percentage of that. If you have one child, it's 20% a month. If you have two children, it's 25%, three children, 30%, and it goes up.
I see.
Okay. And if a person doesn't pay their child support, you can do what's called an enforcement. It's a separate lawsuit that you would file.
I see.
It's heard by the same judge that signed your divorce.
I see.
And essentially it's saying he was ordered to pay child support on these dates. He has not done it. Please hold him in contempt of court. And what that means is the judge, if he finds you in contempt, has the option to fine you, to put you in jail for 6 months for each violation.
Oh, that's pretty serious.
And that can be done concurrently, or it can be done consecutively. So say you miss 3 support payments, that's 6 months for each payment you missed.
I see.
Now, generally, on the first violation, judges will not do that. They'll order you to jail, but they'll suspend that jail sentence on the condition that you
continue to pay.
And you keep paying.
What about what I had a thought? I kind of missed my train of thought. Okay. What if one of the parents, they don't want to see the kids?
I mean, unfortunately, we do have that. We have the deadbeat parents. So I think the question you're getting at is if a parent doesn't let you see your kid, what can you do? And it's the same thing as if the person doesn't pay child support. You do an enforcement case. You say the court has ordered you to let me see my child on these dates. You're not doing that. So please hold him in contempt for violating the order. Now, parents come to me, especially moms, and ask me, look, the dad doesn't want to see the kids. Can I take him to court for not wanting to see the kids? I was like, well, I say technically you can. But in the end, you're trying to force someone
who doesn't
do something that they really don't want to do. The court is better equipped to force someone to do something they're supposed to do.
I see.
Making them do something they don't
want to do.
So if a parent doesn't want to see the kid, taking them to court to make them see the kid, even if the court says you have to see the kid, what kind of environment will that be when the parent is forced to see a child he doesn't want to spend time with? The child is not going to enjoy that.
So you might as well just write it off and move on.
If the parent is not willing to exercise the visitation that they've been awarded, then that's just sad. But the other parent has to let it go.
Oh, my thought came back, and this is a very important one. A lot of our Desi from India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and all these things. Say they have a $500,000 house, and the spouse doesn't work, and she says, "I'm not going to leave the house. You leave the house." What's going to happen in that circumstance?
So when you file a divorce case, and you have a situation like that, you want to do what are called temporary orders.
I see.
And they are orders that govern how you and your spouse live while the case is happening.
I see.
Because the case can take 6 to 9 months.
I see.
So there's some rules on how you guys will live. One of the things they'll decide is who gets to stay in the house while the case is happening. And then once the case is done, they will decide who gets the house. And it's not always someone getting the house. Sometimes the court might order that the house be sold.
I
and
see.
the proceeds of the sale split.
I see. If they don't have enough cash assets.
If there's not enough estate or earning ability where the spouse can keep the house, even if they're awarded it, then a lot of times they'll just decide to sell the house and split the proceeds.
I see. Oh, that's a real tough situation.
I mean, divorce is not a joke. I mean, it's a difficult.
I know we are laughing here, but I can tell you it's not. Okay, let's make it a little more complicated here, and we talked about deadbeat fathers who don't give their child support and all this. Okay, before we go any further, let's give out your contact information.
Sure.
If somebody wants to have any more discussion and they want to know,
Yeah, you can reach me at my office number is 281-903-7293.
yeah,
And then my website is puvvadalaw.com. That's
Yeah.
PUVVADALAW.com. And I have an office here in Sugarland,
Yeah.
right over there on Brook Street by the old sugar factory.
oh yeah, I used to have an office there and
Yeah.
Memorial Professional Building.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
just give me a call or go to the website, and all the contact info will be there.
Okay, when does the child support stop?
So, child support stops. There's a couple of ways it can stop.
Yeah,
The most common is either when the child turns 18 or graduates from high school,
Yeah.
whichever happens later.
I see. Yeah,
Okay, so if the child turns 18 and is still a senior in high school,
Yeah.
you still have to pay child support till the kid graduates from high school.
oh, is that right?
Yeah. And
So if they fail a year or two, that means you have to continue to pay.
yeah, you do.
I see.
You do, yeah.
I didn't know this one.
Yeah. So if they don't get their high school degree and they're pursuing that degree,
Yeah,
then you have to. Like if they're just dropping out of school and not doing anything,
Yeah.
then no.
I see. Yeah,
But if they are pursuing that degree, then yes.
yeah. Okay. What about college funding and all this?
Yeah, unfortunately, the legal obligation to support your child ends once they become an adult. So
Not in the Desi community.
no, but legally, the court cannot order you to pay child support
Okay.
past what the law
18 years or
requires,
a college,
past
high school
18
pay.
or college, unless the person is like a disabled person who has
Yeah,
long-term needs. So really, even if my client comes to me and
Yeah.
says, I am willing to put in an order that I will pay the tuition,
yeah,
I say don't do it, because you can do it on your own,
yeah.
but don't force yourself to be legally obligated
I
to
see.
do it.
Yeah.
Because then she can come back, or he can come back and say, you're violating the order, send him to jail.
I see. Well, that's pretty serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's make it a little more complicated here, and let's see. Can a spouse be penalized for cheating,
You mean adultery?
adultery, like
Yes.
punitive damages, things like that?
Well, no, I mean,
Huh?
there are certain torts.
Yeah.
Torts are like personal civil actions that you can add to a divorce case.
Yeah,
But generally, we don't do that. What we do is, those are all factors that the court will consider in how it divides.
how the property is divided.
So
Yeah,
if someone cheated, then they might give more to the person who's
Yeah.
been cheated on. So that's the best
Oh.
way to handle it.
not only cheating in terms of relationship. What about there are a lot of people talk about hiding money during divorce and all this.
That-
You need to maybe expand on this, because
So that is
people
why-
think they are so naive
Yeah.
that they can,
Yeah.
I've been hiding it for last year or
Yeah.
so because I knew this is
I know,
coming.
yeah.
Maybe expand on this.
I tell clients, especially my Desi clients, they want to say, "Can I send my money to India?
Yeah.
Should I do that?" And I tell them, it's not going to benefit you. Okay, either if you're hiding money or money has been hidden from you, it's going to come out, because, like you said, we do discovery.
Yeah.
So one of the things we request always is bank records.
Yeah.
So give me your bank records, and then I'll see. Wait a minute, there's this transfer of $50,000.
Where did it
Where's
go?
going to? You have to tell me where it's going to. And
Yeah.
if you give me some bogus excuse like, "Oh, I sent it to India because it was a loan I'm paying back," I
Yeah.
see that a lot. I have
Is
a
that right?
loan in India that I have to pay back.
Yeah.
We would call that fraud on the community.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a specific aspect of the
Yeah.
case law where you say a spouse is committing fraud,
Fraud,
on
yeah.
the community estate. They're wasting community assets.
Yeah.
And so what the court will do in that situation is it will say, okay, this $50,000, you made it disappear.
Yeah.
So we're gonna believe that it's still there.
Yes.
And we're
You're
gonna
gonna
divide
divide.
the estate as though it's still there. And if there's not enough money, you're gonna owe that money. To
I
the
see.
other
It's a loan.
spouse. Yeah.
No, you see, I went to Las Vegas, gambled, I lost $100,000.
Yeah, no, if someone came to me and my spouse said that,
Yeah.
I would say that's a waste of community assets. They wasted that money, and you should be entitled to half of that back.
Really?
$100,000 in gambling debts is a huge waste of community assets. Yeah.
Oh, So you don't even have the freedom to go and gamble your money away.
Well, not
But
I wouldn't say
not that you were planning divorce before when you were
Right,
going to Las
right.
Vegas.
No, but you have spouses who are
Yeah.
just terrible with money. You know,
Yeah.
they blow their money.
That's right.
But that's a waste of community assets. You know, if you're blowing money on gambling, if you're blowing money on a mistress, things like that.
Oh,
that is what we call waste.
what if they lose money in stock market?
That's different. That's
I
different.
see.
Like, you know, this is all a judgment call.
I
you know,
see,
by,
yeah.
by the court, by the judge. So if it's like a bad investment,
Yeah.
that's very different than that. You know, frivolously wasting money.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk another different scenario.
Sure.
He's an American doctor. He goes to India and he marries a pretty girl from nice
Yeah.
family.
Yeah.
They give him 10 crores. I don't know how many millions of dollars it is. He comes here and after a few months or a year or so, he files for divorce.
Yeah.
And what happens to that dowry?
Okay. So the law is when you're talking about property that's outside of Texas,
Yeah.
the Texas courts will treat it assuming you were in Texas when you got the property.
Yeah.
So like if you bought a house while you're married in India,
Yeah.
the court will say, well, let's assume you bought that house while you lived in Texas, so that house would be
I
community
see. A
property.
community property.
So that's the general rule that applies.
Yeah.
Now, a dowry, they don't recognize dowry here.
Yeah.
So what that essentially is a gift.
Yes.
Okay? And a gift, even if you're married, is your separate property.
Wait a minute. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
You're talking like $5 million?
Yeah. So if your in-laws
Yeah.
are giving you a dowry, which is basically a gift of $5 million,
Yeah.
that is a gift. And any gift you get is your separate
So
property.
there's no value for the gift as to how much is acceptable and what is not acceptable.
Yeah. As long as you can prove it's a gift, then it's a gift and it's your separate property.
So let's say a man gets a $50,000 diamond ring for his girl, and things don't work out. What is going to happen to that? Is that a community property?
No, that is her separate property.
Oh
That is a
gosh.
gift. The only thing
Yeah.
I can say is that the law presumes
Yeah.
that everything you have when you're married is community property.
Yeah.
It is your responsibility to prove otherwise.
I see.
So you would have to prove that ring was a gift. You would have to prove that $5 million was a gift. If you can't prove it, then the court will assume it's community property.
Yeah, but that $50,000 ring was given for a commitment of a lifetime,
Doesn't
but it
matter.
hasn't lasted lifetime.
Yeah, it's not like it was a deal. It wasn't a bargain.
I know.
It was
I
a
understand.
gift. Yeah.
This is like a moral
Yeah.
relationship. It's not.
Unfortunately, the law and morality do not always.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are listening to NIKAM Network Talk Show. We are talking about a very serious topic. I know I'm laughing, but this is not a real laughing subject. Okay, and we talked about hiding money and all these things. Okay, let's talk about now you have property in India. You talked about those. Okay, let's make it a little more complicated.
Sure.
One of the spouse leaves the country and goes to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. I mean, it happens. It's
Yeah, no, it
happened.
happens a lot.
So maybe you can see how we're going to deal with this situation.
Yeah. So there's something called the Hague Convention on International Abduction.
Yeah.
And it's a treaty between a lot of nations on what to do if a child is kidnapped by a parent to another
Yeah.
nation. Unfortunately, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh,
Yeah.
Nepal, Sri Lanka are not members of that treaty.
Really?
They are not members.
Oh.
So if a parent takes a child there and doesn't bring them back, there's not a whole lot you can do from here to bring them back from there. It has to be done in India. Okay, so the best way to deal with
In India, it might take 20 years
Yeah,
to get a case
no.
resolved.
So really, the best way is to prevent it from happening.
Yeah.
And there are ways you can prevent it. You can do passport controls. You can require a bond if there is a serious risk of child abduction. You can require that the parent taking the child overseas submit a bond to the court. Like $15,000, $20,000 as security for their return. But once they're there, there's not a whole lot you can do from here.
Is that right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that is the case.
Well, once they are there, they already got the passport, everything. So
Yeah, no, what you can do is you can put in your order that this parent has control over the passport.
yeah, I see.
If you can prove to the court that there is a serious risk of abduction, then the court will not even allow that parent to
Leave.
have a passport
Yeah.
or leave the country with the child.
Well, we don't know because this happens after they have already left the
No, that's
country.
the thing. You hold on with the passport. The kid can't leave without the passport.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay, let's give out your contact information once more, and then we will make things a little more complicated.
Okay. My office number is 281-903-7293. And my website is puvvadalaw.com. That's PUVVADALAW.com.
Okay. One of the spouses has gone to India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or something. How you get a divorce when they are not corresponding or talking to you or responding to your even court order or whatever it is?
Right. So there's multiple ways you can attack this.
Yeah.
And a lot of it depends on your history with the spouse. So if the spouse lived in the U.S. with you, and then before you can file for divorce, they left, the court in Texas has the right to make decisions about that spouse.
I see, yeah.
Because they lived in Texas within the 2 years, and that was the last place you guys lived together as husband and wife.
Yeah.
Okay. If they've never been to Texas, they've never even been to the U.S., then it's a little harder because the court doesn't have what's called personal jurisdiction.
I see, yeah.
Okay? So to serve someone in India, remember you have to give the citation
I know.
in person?
Yeah.
So you still have to do that
I see.
in India, but like India and the U.S. have a treaty
Yeah.
where there is a process to do that. They have a central authority in the central government in India that you send your citations to, and then they will go out and serve them.
Yeah.
Okay? The problem with that is it's being done by the Indian government.
I know.
So number one, it's expensive.
I know.
It costs like $500 just to attempt it.
Yeah.
And it's long. It takes like 4 to 6 months
Oh,
to
gosh.
do the process, okay? The other thing you can do is you can have the court here send them notice of the suit. And sometimes because they're not aware of how the laws work here, they will send a response back to the court.
Mm-hmm.
And once they do that, they are in the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't need to serve them anymore. They have filed a response with the court and they're in the case. So that's the best way to do it. But what I tell people is if you have a spouse who doesn't have very many ties to this country, but is here right now in Texas,
do
not tell them that you're about to file for divorce. File for it.
Yeah.
Have them served while they're in Texas.
I see, yeah.
And then once you do that, they
got it,
they are in the jurisdiction of the court. And then even if they run away to India, you can still get your divorce.
So the judge can just
they'll give you
sign the decree.
They can give you a default judgment.
I see, yeah, default judgment. Does the divorce end anything?
Does it? I mean, it ends the marital relationship.
The physical relationship, living in the same house and all.
It ends that. It ends the financial ties that bind you. You're no longer community property. The money you earn is your own now. Okay. But if you have kids, no, it doesn't end.
That's what I was going to say. Let's look at a scenario where 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, you still have to see the kids together, graduating from high school, from college, marriage, grandkids. You may have to change their diaper sitting in the same room. So it doesn't really, as you said, if they have children, it is just the beginning of a lifelong, maybe an unpleasant or, not so desirable.
It's a new status quo for that.
Status quo. So it just continues. That's what I think is well, that's life. I mean, if things were worse under one roof, and maybe it's not as bad.
I'll say this: when you have children and you have a divorce decree that sets up child support, custody, and visitation, until they turn 18, you can modify that.
I see.
You can go back to court and say the circumstances have changed and the orders no longer work. So let's change them, and that's like a whole new lawsuit. So you can do that up until the kids are adults. But once they're adults, they are no longer children. They're not subject to the order anymore.
Okay, let's give out your contact information again, and maybe you can share some experience about what kind of situations you've seen in the Desi population. So that may be educational to all of us.
My office number is 281-903-7293, and my website is puvvadalaw.com. That's PUVVADALAW.com. So I do have a lot of Desi clients. And what I see, the most common situation I'm seeing is you have a professional that comes to the U.S. from India. Could be a physician, an engineer, and they work here for a couple of years. They kind of set up their life here, and they go back to India and they get married, generally set up by their parents. They come back here. They're still alone because the immigration process has to take place. Then it finally happens, and their spouse comes, and maybe 6 months, a year into it, they decide they don't want to be married anymore. That is the most common situation.
I see.
among Desis. And it just keeps happening over and over.
Do you have any advice for like all these different types of cases from a legal perspective?
From a legal perspective, I mean, it's so difficult because the standards in India where these marriages are happening are just so different from here. So I would say, have a prenup if you can. But they don't even know what that is in India.
I know.
And then if you ask them, they'll say, why would we do this? What does it mean? It has no meaning.
That already begins the negative thought. Why are you asking for a prenup?
I mean, the best advice I can give to people who want to avoid divorce or thinking should I even get married is you have to know your spouse. You really have to know your spouse, because unfortunately we still in the Indian community I feel like we used to have that sense that once you're married, you're married no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what.
I know.
It doesn't matter what happens. You are married.
But I think with the second generation Indians, I think it is becoming fairly common and acceptable
to have a divorce.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's become more acceptable to have a divorce. But at the same time, we're doing marriages in a way where it was based on the notion that you would stay married no matter what. So you have people getting into a marriage that maybe they're not ready for or they don't want, and then
but that's the sad thing, because the way the marriages are celebrated here, like these relationships were made in heaven, and you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, and after a year or so you see that we are not compatible. It's
well, here at least I think the dating process, the time to get to know the person you're with, it really helps.
I see.
If you're making the right decision or not.
Okay, Chikeersha, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And I mean, I didn't even realize we have passed like 30-40 minutes. This topic is so important, and it's vital for those people who are getting involved in this scenario, because I mean, we laughed a lot, but I know this is not.
I mean, the one piece of advice I can give is if you've been served with divorce papers, then immediately consult an attorney. Do not put your head in the sand and hope it'll go away.
Okay, thank you very much, and we'll meet again. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have got. Next week, we're going to be talking about different topics. I'm Dr. Nick Nikam. You have been watching Nick Nikam Network talk show, and you can watch this entire interview on YouTube or Google+. Thank you.